Welcome to the Thurston County Board of Health special meeting for today, November 4th, 2020. I'm the chair of the Board of Health, Ty Menser. We have Commissioner John Hutchings, who I believe is vice chair of the Board of Health. Commissioner Edwards by telephone. I recognize his number now.
I just changed his name.
Okay, perfect. County Manager Mira Chavez, Director of Public Health and Social Services Shelley Slaughter, and key members of her public health team, Steve Peterson, Art Starry, and Jane Mountjoy Venning, as well as Lydia Hodgkinson, Clerk of the Board of Health. Okay, this is a follow-up from a series of, and kind of an ongoing spaced out series of work sessions and briefings we've had working on water quality, different aspects of the problem. And I think the staff has prepared a kind of series of topics as I understood from the briefing memo. So I'm just going to turn it to, well, let me start with the county manager. Ramiro, do you want to frame the issue before we move to public health?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. You're right on point. This continuation of a series of briefings related to this matter. As you may recall, back in June 2017, 2020, you had a conversation related to the Scatter Creek aquifer protection efforts, and also some of the water resources and opportunities and efficiencies related to that. And you have any specific questions at that time as to how we can continue on related to, I believe, the water quality, the septic systems, and all related to that subject. So the staff is here to continue the conversation. I don't believe at the end of today is going to be the end of this conversation. And I'm sure the board will have additional questions that we may need to come back and provide information to you as we move along. And I believe Art is going to take the lead on this.
Good afternoon, and this is Art Starry, the Environmental Health Director for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And as Ramiro and Commissioner Menser indicated, this is a follow-up to a briefing from June and actually several briefings before that. So we've had different topics that have related to water quality and programs and things. And so I wanted to get back to you. If you looked at the notes from the last briefing, you'd actually hoped for a longer, like a 2-hour briefing. And we were going to try to do a more coordinated effort with some other programs. And we've done that to some extent, and I hope Kevin Hansen is able to join us here fairly soon. But what I wanted to make sure, though, that I followed up with things and told you what we were working on, and also responded to some of the questions that came up on the Scatter Creek project and where we are on that at the moment. That was one of the topics that came up. So I'm not the best at this Zoom stuff, but I'm going to try to share my screen and see what happens. So. And hang on here. Are you seeing a slide now?
Yeah.
I was seeing a slide with kind of the next slide next to it, but.
Okay, wrong thing. Hang on. This is what happens. I don't know what I'm doing. Hang on here. Try to reopen that. My apologies. Okay. Okay, Jane is here to help me. This?
Kevin, welcome. Kevin Hansen's joined us.
Okay. Guess where did I go with them? Hang on. Oh, there's Zoom and share screen. So now are we getting it?
Yeah, looks better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jane. So, and Kevin is here. So what I wanted to do again was follow up on some stuff previously, along with the assistance of Jane and Steve and Kevin. And then we can kind of see where we go next. So the bottom line of this whole thing is that we do have a bunch of partners working within Thurston County who are trying to help us protect and preserve our water resources. And they're both people at Public Health and Public Works and CPED. And they're doing a variety of different things. There are a bunch of different authorities and using different funding sources. And so what we are doing in response to our last briefing is putting together a more comprehensive view of the activities that are taking place and how they're authorized and funded. But that isn't ready today, but we will come back to you next year. I'll talk a little bit about that more, but I wanted to let you know that we are diligently trying to follow up on that. It's just a combination of things as far as just being with staff being busy and staff being reallocated and sometimes, and not to mention the COVID stuff, which affects us in a bunch of different ways. We just aren't as far along as we would like on that effort. Then I did want to talk about some of the things we are doing with grants, but also recognize some of the challenges that those propose and if how we want to move ahead, looking at, again, what options there might be for that. So far, so good.
Yep.
So today we're going to again talk about Scatter Creek. I wanted to kind of preview or respond to some previous questions about, is there a way to prepare a synopsis or something that shows the work? Have a 1 or 2 page thing that describes our efforts and where we're going. And so highlight something or show you that. I won't go into it in detail here, but just that's part of your packet. And if at some point folks could look at that and tell us whether they think it's on the mark or off the mark, that would be very helpful, because I think that is a really good point. Some of the stuff we talk about is pretty complex and long, and if we can break it down into a couple of pages, I think that would serve a multitude of purposes. So that'll be coming up. Talk quickly about some of the work we're doing on the water quality program evaluation. Kevin is working on a groundwater model, which I think has lots of potential. It's the sort of thing we would like to be able to develop for a variety of county purposes, for public health, for water resource management, water quantity and quality. And we will pursue a grant, actually, to try to help provide the resources so he can spend more time with it. So we want to preview that, and then talk a little bit about moving ahead.
Art, I'm going to suggest that we save questions to the end. Is that okay? Because I
that
know
would be fine.
We only have an hour, so
yeah. So on the screen here is it's actually something that Jane developed in response to at the end of our grant last time for the Scatter Creek project, and so we're thinking this might be a good model for something, a synopsis or a summary that we can use. And so it's something we did for the grant agency, and you can see that it talks about the project and what we accomplished and the different activities that took place and the effort, what we did. Let's see, pointer options. Wow, I'm going to use a laser pointer. Some of the findings of the project, steps for success and lessons learned. And then what I did here was just to show some of the recent work that's going on and how we're trying to be responsive to the work that was done by the citizens. So this took place a number of years ago. We're trying to follow through with the project as best we can with the resources we have, but frankly, it's somewhat frustrating that we aren't able to keep doing as much as we would like. But with the assistance of Kevin and CPED and public and the staff over there, we have been working, and I say we, oh, wait, someone's knocking on my door. We've got 9 dedicated groundwater monitoring wells that have been installed. There's some real-time nitrate monitoring sensors that have been installed. They just went in, so we'll have to see how well that works, but that'll help us address one of the big questions that the community group had that I'll highlight in a second. Kevin's been able to work to update and improve our groundwater modeling. And I say our, but it's mostly the work that CPED's doing. So thanks to Kevin and folks over there for allowing him to do that. And then one of the things we want to do, and it's on the next slide, is to try to evaluate kind of spikes or kind of high levels of contaminants that have showed up in groundwater on occasion. We don't know. We want to know more about that. That's one of the things the citizens really wanted us to look at. They highlight it there. It says that they wanted us to continue to do groundwater monitoring. And you might recall this slide from our previous presentation, and not surprising, the spike is the thing we want to talk about. That is from sampling that occurred during the time we were doing the community outreach and doing the Scattered Creek work with the community from 2012 to 2014. So this was one well on one day, the 13th of October, or October of 2013, and this elevated nitrogen level showed up. And the thing is, that was one sample, one day. We don't know how long that nitrogen level continued to be high. We don't know if it got, if the 6.5 milligrams is as high as it got, or if it went much higher. We don't know if it was elevated for a day, a week, or a month. That's something that we want to try to characterize further with monitoring, and that's what that real-time monitoring sampling will do. And along with the new well network. So that'll be very helpful for us as well. We want to have staff to be able to go out and try to hit a storm event and monitor for other contaminants as well. We haven't been able to do that because just of the unusual nature of storms and trying to predict them, and also the COVID stuff has made our work much more difficult this year. So we're don't have that as far as we would like. We are continuing to do monitoring. But that's something that we're working on.
Kevin was waving a metal stick. Did you have something out there, Kevin?
Oh, well, the real-time sensors that Art was referring to, I've got one in my hand here. This goes down in 3 of our wells, and it's a way to record more information more quickly so we can find those spikes, and it also reduces our labor cost a little bit because we don't have to go out there every time to sample. We can let the instrument do it for us.
So just quickly here, the map that's up now is the well network that was being used and had been used for years to evaluate water quality in Scattered Creek. These are all, for the most part, are individual or single family wells, and there are some community wells such as the ones that for the county. And the star here is the one that had that spike that I showed you. So this is before. What we are going to do, or what Kevin and company are doing, is replacing that network with a network of wells that the county owns and drills that are on right-of-way or public property. And that provides a lot of advantages. Kevin can, I'm sure, elaborate, but by knowing how well they're drilled and the material they're drilled in and their depth and how they're being instrumented, that provides much tighter controls as far as the quality of the information that we get from them, as well as it provides it really is a benefit, I think, to the public, because we're not having to go on their property. And if unfortunately we find something unusual, we aren't actually obligating them to, I guess, kind of creating a liability for them by having their well be the one that shows something weird. So there's a more technical term than weird, but I think that's a big public service to be able to do this without having to put the wells actually on the individual's property. So that's what we're doing. So that's in the future. These wells are being monitored, and I don't know which 3 have the real-time data loggers in them, but that's a big step forward. And I really do want to thank the folks over at CPED for doing this work and coming up with the resources to do it. It's a big benefit to everybody to have that information. So that's ongoing. So that's how we're trying to continue to do this Scattered Creek stuff. Are there any questions? And I wasn't going to elaborate I guess I'll go back. But I wasn't going to spend much more time on that. That's where we are with Scattered Creek. We've spent a lot of time on it before. I didn't want to go and review data and things again. We've done that. But if you have questions or there's future things that you would like us to do, we'll certainly do our best to fulfill them. And certainly when we start getting information from these, the new well network and the new data loggers, we'll present that.
Commissioner Edwards, any questions on that piece, Scattered Creek well network?
Nope, I think Art's done a good job explaining everything they're up to. I'm good for now.
Commissioner
And I-
Hopkins?
No, I'm very appreciative of our staff. I love these briefings. It's good information. But I have no questions.
All right.
Art, my question was real quick. You kind of answered it. I was going to ask how long this network's been in place. Sounds like pretty new, and you're still didn't sound like you've got much data yet from this network. Is that
So
right?
the new wells have been in just a couple of years. Do you know the dates, Kevin?
Yeah, they went in March or so of 2017, and we've been collecting water levels and sampled them after that. We've got continuous level recorders in there right now, and the new nitrate detection instruments went in just a few months ago.
And then on your one, or I guess it's a front and back document, it says in the middle of the second page, steps for identified continued success. The first sentence there says, or the second sentence says, a standing citizen advisory committee will help prioritize and direct implementation of the recommendations. Is there a standing citizen advisory committee?
There is not, and that's frankly one of my great frustrations is that we haven't been able to have that ongoing work. The group was really good that helped us with this project, and I think we achieved the most when we were able to continue to have dialogue with folks like that are so interested. And it was a very diverse group, lots of different interests, and I think I mentioned before they were able at the end to reach a complete agreement on how to go forward. That was I didn't think that was possible going into the beginning of the project, and I think Jane gets a lot of credit for doing such a good job working with that group. So that's one of the things, and actually was something I was going to highlight as a kind of a frustration with grants. They're great when you can get them, but they take a lot of work, and when they're done, if the grant funding goes away, if you can't find a way to sustain the efforts there, you can end up with gaps like this. So again, that's one of the frustrations that they pose. Staff go on to other projects. It's sometimes hard to pick things up. So that's one of my frustrations. One of the reasons I came back to this slide is that we recently, there's a final report that you can see the web address there. When I prepared for this and talked to Jane about it, I was, whoops, I don't know why I'm doing this. You should not let me have control of the thing. There's a lot of work that went into it. I was quite impressed when reviewing it again about how the community outreach, the surveys we did, the workshops, the fairs that folks attended. There was a lot of effort to make sure that we could engage people as much as possible and to take their concerns into account as this project went forward. And so I think this shows that a really good and concerted effort by staff at the time. And Steve was part of that. We had some version of all hands on deck at different times of this to present things and prepare data. And so I was really pleased when I got a chance to review it again. I did tell you a bit about that we are working with staff at CPED and Public Works to kind of identify our different water resource programs and the different things that they're doing and the authorities and funding for them, but it's still a work in progress. So I was pretty pleased that I found this slide that looks, maybe it's water, I don't know, the puzzle pieces, but just to show that it's in there, that we are working on it and hope to come back to you soon with that information. It was actually quite amazing. We had a 2-hour Zoom meeting, started talking about things and reviewing, and then started to compile a list of all the different programs and people who are working on water resources activities for those 3 programs. For those 3 departments, we identified, I think, 14 programs. They're authorized by something like 50 state, federal, and local codes and plans. So it's a lot of work, a lot of moving pieces, and the funding varies from charges and rates and charges that are charged via the property tax statement to fees, to grants and loans. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and it's suddenly we realized that, we realized it was going to be quite an effort to pull this together and do a decent job, and so we are working on it, but it is taking a bit of time. So coming soon. And now I want to hand things over to Kevin and talk a bit about some groundwater modeling that he is working on and that hopes to enhance with some grant fundings that we hope to obtain from the State Department of Health. And I'll let him go from here, and I can move. I think Kevin's got a demo that he wants to show, but this is I found this picture and I couldn't resist it. This for folks like Jane and Kevin and others who've gone and done community displays and tried to show how aquifers work. There's models like this, and we had one just like this, and so this kind of sets the stage for what we used to do and how we used to do a lot of work. And now Kevin's going to talk maybe a bit about the future.
Yeah, thanks, Art. That sand tank model is very helpful in education and outreach, just explaining to people what's going on down there. So, in looking at the size of, I'll call it the septic issue in our county, we end up with this question of, where do you even start? Because the number of septics is so large. I guess next slide, Art. Oh, yeah, the dots you see on this map, the brown dots, are individual septic systems. We know we have at least 54,000 and growing because we're still issuing permits for them. And essentially, once they're there, they rarely go away. Very, very few septics are being taken offline at this point. A few. Lacey in particular is attempting to hook up the Capital City Golf Club, but mostly these stay almost in perpetuity. So you say to yourself, if we're going to propose something good as far as septics related policy, how do we do that? Where do we start? Well, okay, on the next slide, we have about 30,000 groundwater samples, more than that actually, but it's a good round number to talk about. These samples are a good way to begin looking at what might be problems, but we can't say that these are directly due to septic. It's not that precise. So this might be caused by whatever is happening feeding that well. It might include a whole host of things. So how do we look very carefully at what a particular causal agent is doing that might result in the concentrations we see here? And this is color-coded. Green is below 2 milligrams per liter. Yellow is 2 to 4 milligrams per liter. Orange is 4 to 10, and above 10 is a purple dot representing a federal maximum contaminant level exceedance. So, Art, let's go to the next slide, I guess. We may come back to that one. Modeling can help this because it can show us where loading may be problematic. And by loading, I mean the cumulative impact of all those septic systems, and looking specifically at the impact of septics separate from any other causes. Now, we can also add in other causes, other sources, but in this case, what you're about to see is related specifically to septic. So the earth is good to a certain degree at accepting, and I'll call it assimilating or reducing the concentration of toxicity from wastewater. That's why we have a septics design process that looks at how to install them based on the soil type, location, etc., depth of water. But the assimilative capacity of the earth can be exceeded. And we see that as rising concentrations in groundwater. So, Art, let's go to the next one.
I was just going to say one thing, that the assimilative capacity concept is used by the county to evaluate land use proposals now. Kevin does a lot of work working with hydrogeologists to do that for the larger proposals. So it's been around for a while. We're doing the best we can with the tools that we have, but we could always do better, and that's what this sort of stuff might help us do.
Right. But we've actually, sorry, Art.
Well, and then the other thing is just Scatter Creek project, the issue of what, if you read the title of it, it was about septic systems is what it said. And that was because we had to frame it that way for our funders. But it really was trying to separate out all these other elements. People had questions about what about lawns and agriculture and this and that. And so we did our best to separate that out. But it wasn't with this precision that we would like. So being able to, as Kevin said, to be able to look at the different layers or different contributors really is a big thing, especially when you're trying to build, people want to be confident in the results or the recommendations that come out of a process that uses a model. So I'm sorry to take over, Kevin, but I just you brought out a couple of thoughts for me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, so we can actually calculate, based on the number of septics per acre, how much nitrogen, in this case, is being loaded into the aquifer and whether or not we might have a problem. So we have to do a test for larger developments in which we look at whether or not the extra wastewater is going to overload the system. And we do that by looking at federal maximum contaminant levels and where the background concentrations already are. And if the new septic is going to kick that wastewater up above, I guess it's 10% of the remaining loading, but basically, if it's going to be problematic, it's going to show up on this map as a red, orange, or yellowish dot. So the places where you see a red, orange, or yellow dot on this map, I would begin to look at it and go, we might have to look more closely at whether or not there's enough capacity to permit new septic systems as a wastewater disposal method in that area. It doesn't mean there's absolutely a problem. It means we need to look more closely at it. So by calculating this as sort of step one, we can develop the beginnings of the model you're about to see. So Art, next slide. So if we look more closely, I picked Tanglewild, which is an older development built in the 60s and 70s. Art, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think it was 60s and 70s for Tanglewild.
Yeah, it was would have been from the 60s. Permitting even continued through the 90s. There's probably a few permits with my name on them.
Oh yeah. So this is a well-known area of septage. Notice how the edge of Lacey's city limit kind of bounds the heavy concentration of septics in Tanglewild. It's been a question for a long time. So now that we've chosen a focus area and calculated what nitrate is coming into it, we go to the next slide, and we can simulate it and then animate it so that hopefully we learn something. Because the key things to remember, septic wastewater spreads. It spreads naturally in groundwater. It moves. And that's a tricky thing to understand because septage may extend beyond the parcel boundaries. So it's affecting potentially other landowners and other waterways. So the model is an attempt to make a first cut at calculating the extent and timing of that potential movement. So whoever's giving control, I'm hoping I can share my screen here.
I think you can just do it.
Let's see here if this works. Okay. Okay, now you should see a zoom in. It's in the model space, so it looks a little different. Just to explain what you're looking at, the blue line running up through the center is Woodland Creek. It crosses I-5 and Martin Way, not too far from the Department of Ecology. At the bottom, you see these blue shapes. Those are actually the north end of Pattison Lake and the north end of Long Lake. So the little red squares that you see, those are simulated septic systems loaded up with the concentration of waste we know is there and the amount of waste we know is there, because there are two parts to it. There's concentration and an amount. So now, if I play this thing, you're going to be looking at what happens in the second layer down in the model. What I mean there is, this is the drinking water aquifer. So one of the things I couldn't even show because it was so blanked out with waste is the shallow soil zone is completely wiped out by septage in here, and it gets into our storm sewer system. It's got issues. But the second aquifer, people actually begin to drink from, and then the lower aquifers, they also drink probably more water from there. The black dots that you see are actually drinking water wells in this aquifer, although many wells have been removed from this zone and people had to be connected to public water supplies because of what you're about to see. So let's play this now. So this is the model animation starting at about 1970, and it runs for about 30 years. That's about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Notice it's beginning to hit Woodland Creek, seep into Woodland Creek, and then it finishes up at around 30 years, approximately. The time clock you see in the upper right is in fact in days, model days. So model data used this way can tell us a lot that we could have a very difficult time sampling it directly, but we can estimate what it might look like this way. So the numbers you see here, the number 10 that you see all over the screen near the orangish areas, that's greater than the federal maximum contaminant level for nitrate in this simulation. Now, this is a preliminary thing, but the point is that if the wastewater were at that concentration, you couldn't drink it. You wouldn't want to drink it. You wouldn't want to permit a new well in there. Thankfully, most of these folks are on public water supplies. You do see a cluster of black dots surrounded by this 10 contour. I worry that they may be impacted, but again, we would need field data to know. So let me play this one more time. So this is actually, the kind of thing that we can say, okay, we're going to guide where we go with data collection and how we think about and manage our wastewater allocations based on this kind of predictive analysis. And now that it's built countywide, we can test this area by area as we choose. Now, we can also determine how much Woodland Creek is getting from that groundwater seepage. To me, it's an inexpensive, fast way of getting initial information that will help us make decisions. So, Art, that's it for my stuff. I guess I was going to turn it back to you.
Okay. So thanks, Kevin. And I think, where do I go here?
I had a couple of snapshots in there, but those were just in case the video bailed.
Okay.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Sure.
So one of the things that I have concerns about when we're looking at drinking water is the folks who are not necessarily right there in Tanglewild, but other areas of the county who are on individual wells.
Can you come closer to the microphone?
Yes. Who are, I have concerns about the people on individual wells, which are not regulated once they're in the ground. The drinking water systems are regularly sampling and have to meet certain criteria, but scattered all about the county where we have high levels of septic systems, we also have a lot of folks on individual wells who may not be sampling regularly and may be having groundwater in excess or approaching the contaminant level that we would have health concerns about. So, ways of protecting our drinking water to protect everyone, not just the people who are getting community system wells.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jane. So are my slides back up?
Not yet.
Yes. Okay. This shows that I'm a Zoom novice for sure. So Kevin showed the animation. I think the other point that I think Commissioner Hutchings and Menser can both relate to this, and I can't remember if Commissioner Edwards ever served on the lot board, but the whole lot reclaimed water infiltration study, one of the big questions that they're having and one of the issues they're trying to sort out is, as they look at the fate and transport of reclaimed water at the Hawks Prairie facility, which would be off the screen here, Hawks Prairie would be the reclaimed water infiltration facility would be up where I've got trying to move that cursor.
We don't have your slides.
Okay, something happened here.
We're still on Zoom boxes.
Okay, display settings, hang on. Jane is coming to save me again.
Go back to Zoom
Screen.
Oh, no, yeah, just click on this. Oh,
Somehow we lost it. Hang on here. Kevin didn't give me back. I don't know.
yeah, click on
Am I blocking you somehow?
I don't know.
All right, I'm kind of a novice too.
There should be a share screen button at the bottom.
It's disappeared.
Moderator may need to grant.
No, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, hang on here. We're having technical difficulties. My apologies.
There it is.
Okay, so Jane's got, are you running it, Jane, or am I?
You're muted, Jane.
Okay, did I just move did the slide just change on you?
No, we've got the, whatever you call it, the slide view where you've got your slides lined up on the left and then this featured slide.
We're viewing Jane's screen.
Okay. So somehow Jane's got it. I'm sorry again for my novice here.
We can see the slides in this view.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead then, Jane? So the next one is what, the Tanglewild's 1971 slide? Are you there, Jane?
Jane, you're muted.
Okay, so which slide? I'm sorry about this.
What slide are you looking for, Art?
Well, it was going to be the Tanglewild, number 18, Tanglewild about 1971.
That's the one with, yeah, there we go.
Okay, so is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, it's not full screen, but we're seeing that slide, so we can work with that.
Okay. So that's, so what that one is, again, is that shows that, well, that was the first slide from what Kevin showed. And it's the first part of that animation. And the kind of, I guess, the thing, in addition to the model results, or the recognizing that that's one of the big questions that LOT is trying to decipher or determine when they're doing the fade and transport work on reclaimed water studies. How much is coming from septic systems versus how much is coming from discharges or reclaimed stuff, and then the total maximum daily load studies that we're involved in also are trying to
What happened?
I don't know. Art, we lost you. Let me go down the hall and see if I can figure out what happened.
I think he just disappeared off my,
Hold on.
he just disappeared out of the gallery.
Yeah, I don't have him on the list. Here it comes again.
Okay, he's back. Muted, but back.
now I'm back. You can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, so now let's see what happens. Can I? Okay, now I've got power too. I think I can do this. Hang on. So. Okay, so now can we see that? What sort of screen are you seeing now?
I see 16 different or 12 different slides laid out. And now we're back to the slide with the next slide next to it.
Sure, Menser's audio just cut out. Are you okay? So what slide are we seeing now? I apologize.
You're seeing Tanglewood Wild about 1971, but it's in the
Okay,
view
yeah,
where,
so that was the one I was the kind of the beginning of Kevin's model run again. So it, and then here's again what it showed at the conclusion of the 30 years of model run. So this is as Kevin indicated, this is preliminary. It needs to be calibrated and fine tuned. We think it's representative of what's going on there, but being able to use this and also look at other areas where we're concerned about water quality, contaminants and loads and septic systems, I think would be something really nice to have. It would help both county staff and policymakers, but the public and developers and others who are project proponents, design safe projects that we all can benefit from, because as you know, we've got lots of people that are moving into the area. We need the best information we have to drive policies to determine whether on-site systems are okay or whether sewer should be brought in. Maybe look at different types of technologies. So this would be, having information like this is really valuable and something we would like to be able to do more of. And so then the next question is kind of like, where do we go from here? And I don't have the magic wand or anything. You might recognize this slide before from when we were trying to highlight the septic game, but so I repurposed it here. And kind of the questions we're facing, and I think ultimately are for the board and community members to help decide is, how do we get from this, and Jane can talk about what this is, to this. Over here on the left is Eld Inlet. Over here on the right is Henderson Inlet, and this depicts septic system status as far as monitoring and maintenance. And these are basically hot off the press. You can see that they showed data as of October 1st of 2020. So are you there, Jane? Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I am. So what it's showing is the status of the septic maintenance, basically. So if it's green, it either has a current septic operational certificate, which is required over in Henderson, or for folks that don't have that requirement, it shows that there's been either pumping or a documented inspection within the last 3 years as state law requires. If it's yellow, like you see there's a lot of that in Eld, it's what we call vacant land. It might be forestry, it might be pasture, it might just be an empty lot, but there's no structure and likely no septic there. If it's red, it does not have that documented maintenance within the last few years. And then blue it's on sewer. So I'm sorry we can't figure out how to get the full screen going, but if you look over in Eld, where we've spent a lot of time the last few years doing voluntary kind of education outreach to encourage people to get their systems taken care of, we still have quite a lot of red there. Much lower rate, over in Henderson, we have very high compliance of people getting their septic systems maintained. So we have a current grant where we're able to do this kind of outreach work that we started in Eld in all of our shellfish growing areas. So Taunton Inlet, Eld Inlet, the northern part of Bud, and then of course Henderson and Nisqually.
But yeah, so like as Jane said, we've had a lot of success in Henderson and Nisqually. We're working in Eld using different parameters and different models, and I think again we've a while back we showed you the percentage of on-site systems that have current inspections in Henderson and Eld, and comparing that Henderson and Nisqually, comparing that to elsewhere. And while we're making improvements in L, it's not the same. They're different programs, but that's, again, kind of the big question is we're still looking for the kind of the least intrusive kind of holy grail for septic system maintenance. And the program we've got in Henderson works well. There's costs and a lot of effort associated with it. It's paying off as far as having the improvements in water quality and things, but we keep looking to see if there's other ways to enhance and improve that. So that's that. The other thing, and we talked about this earlier, is kind of the other questions are how do we continue efforts when we start grant-based programs and we aren't able to either get grants or to continue them, or we staff get assigned to other things, or issues come up. So again, if you look, Commissioner Menser noted down the little 2-page thing that there were some different things that we'd hope to do as far as continuing community outreach, continuing to do other, there's some regulatory things that are recommended that we still propose to do when we update our septic system regs. There's some recommendations in there, but there's a lot of really good ideas in there that we haven't been able to fully take advantage of or pursue because of the way the funding cycles come and go, and the fact that grants and fees revenue, frankly, there's a lot of they're limited as what you can do. They're categorical funding. If you read through the state laws and what you can do with septic system fees and things, there's a limited scope of things. What Kevin can do with the stormwater money that they have is a little bit different. So it does make challenges. And so how we could work forward and continue to have the ability to have work with community and have dialogue and evaluate efforts and see what we might do better. Those are the things we need to somehow figure out. I wish I had the answer right now. And of course, this is the slide from previously that we've seen, and it's a current issue, which is this one, the Chutes total maximum daily load study. And so the Department of Ecology and the EPA are expecting us to reduce loads within certain portions of the river to both improve oxygenation and nutrients and sediments. And there's a lot of question about, well, what's the best way to do that? And it takes time and effort to be able to do that. Fortunately, Kevin was able to put this together last time, but it needs to be refined further if we're going to work on it. Again, it takes time and effort to pursue that. We're fortunate that we do have funding to do the ambient monitoring that we've talked about before, including the new station up in the upper Deschutes. But kind of the ongoing discussion, the work that might be done, there's still some limitations there. So that's just kind of the open questions. I don't have answers for them, but I think this is the sort of thing we would like to talk to you about in the future as we bring back kind of a broader discussion about water resource issues. Included things like the septic system management plan, things like that. How do we want to pursue those things? And so just a kind of a snapshot and open-ended questions, but things that we're trying to figure out how to address. And so that's kind of it sounds like Kevin had something, but that's kind of the end of it. So I'm putting up our final slide here. Well, there's one more if you want to see it, but that's kind of it. So Commissioner Menser asked to hold questions to the end. So if you have questions or ideas, we'd love to hear them. We'll do our best.
We've got about 13 minutes, and I know there's questions. Kevin, did you have a final point you wanted to make there?
I just wanted to ask Art, we had good success with the Scatter Creek Citizens Advisory Committee. Is that a model for other areas?
Well, I think it is, and we've used that model, and there's a couple of really sharp professor types who've studied this a lot. We used that when we were working on the sewer project for Tolmie Creek Estates. We did that with Henderson when that special area was formed, and when we developed the work plan for that. So that works really well, and I think that's when we have a way to do that, it works the best. We've been people are able to learn about and understand the issues to help frame them, to bring forward their concerns and things that need to be addressed or considered. In every one of those processes, because of the community involvement and engagement, we learned things and people brought forward ideas that made the project a lot better. Henderson, the septic park is the classic example where no one thought anything about that. Someone said, can you help us learn about how to maintain them? And it's been a huge success. So that's the sort of stuff that comes out of it if you're able to engage the public. So sorry to get on my soapbox.
Commissioner Edwards, do you have a question for either Kevin or Art or Jane?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
First of all, Art, I want to thank you for making me feel quite not the only one that's not very sharp on this Zoom stuff. So you made my afternoon.
Yeah, I'm here to help you, Commissioner Edwards.
You are. You're doing great. Hey, I just wanted to make mention, in the past, in some of those earlier slide areas around the Scatter Creek area, where you had nitrogen loading, and then I didn't hear anything mentioned about dairy farming, and that kind of runs afoul of the Ag Committee promoting more agriculture. Along with that comes the possibility of this nitrogen loading from manure guns and such. Anyway, I see that you're looking there kind of south of on the Case Road area. I'm familiar with the Dolman dairy down there, but I know that goes over there that something might come in and eliminate that activity. And then that'd be kind of interesting to know if that does happen, and if it's no longer there, if that doesn't lower that grade level in the groundwater, I guess. And it's not supposed to be any kind of homes or anything like that. So anyway, just I wonder if there isn't any follow-up available on areas where there was those manure guns and dairy activity, and they were removed, and housing did go in with the safety, and then some of your comparison ability. Do you hear that?
So that's those are really good questions, and I think that's one of the things that having modeling like this available helps us do, because if you understand what the amount of nutrients that are put in, whether it's from dairy or from lawn care practices or from septic systems, and you understand the environment well enough and the model is set up right, you can look at those different things. And I think Kevin highlighted septic system stuff because that's kind of one of the hot topics, but you could have looked at other nutrient sources if we went and did that, and actually, interestingly enough, the Scatter Creek modeling, if we showed you those output slides that Nadine Romero did, those are questions the community had was, well, what about lawns? What about agriculture? What about other things? And they looked at that, and one of the conclusions they reached, which, very relevant, I think, given your comments, is that there was some historic elevated nitrogen that just happened to be in the kind of down gradient from a large dairy operation. And that in this case, what concerns that community members had years ago were lessened some because on-site systems contributed less than the high intensity agriculture in the manure lagoons. So things like that were looked at in that project. Again, there's so much stuff that went on there. If you do have an opportunity to look at that final report, you can see printouts of the different computer models that were done and the assumptions that were built into them. And it was, again, I think a very good project, especially at that time. The modeling that was done was kind of state of the art, not as slick as we have now, but very good information, and the community was fully engaged. And again, I was really pleased with that project. Have anything to add, Jane?
I think that was
I'm sorry, Commissioner Edwards, what was that?
No, I was just telling Art that I thought it was a very good presentation for Jane and Kevin giving us there. That was great. Thank you.
Commissioner Hutchings, questions?
Question or probably more of a comment. I see you have the Victoria update, and that's something you talked about months ago. I'm going to suppose there's no update since that last briefing.
Well, if you really want me to go there.
No, I don't. Is there an update for that?
Actually, they're testing everything now. It's mostly built.
Oh, wonderful.
So they're doing what they call commissioning. And there's like one major transport line they have yet to build that which isn't needed for the operation of the plant, but they're moving right along. So I checked that this morning, and that a couple of those slides or actually the comments are new.
Beautiful, thank you. Because I know on the other side of our border with Mexico, a tremendous number of studies are going on, even by University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, with the amount of sewage, raw sewage, and the fats, what do they call it, the fogs, fats, oils, and greases from businesses and commercial entities, and sewage going into Coyote. It's not only the Rio Grande, but the Coyote River, Coyote Creek, those types of things that are coming in, not only along Texas, but also California border. And they're looking at water discharge regulation and filtration and such. Major problems down there, And I don't think it's anywhere close to getting fixed. But that doesn't impact us here in Washington State as Victoria does. But man, it's just everywhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I think the different standards in place in different countries are, or lack of standards sometimes are amazing.
Right. Anyway, I have no other questions. No questions. Thank you.
I have a couple. So going to Kevin's model, is there, so you pick a area like Tanglewild, and you've got the septic loading, which I understand you can just see how many there are. And then, but you mentioned this phrase, assimilative capacity, and that varies by region or by place, right? Like, I mean, it maybe in Tanglewild, the soils are more porous, or there's more different kind of soil, or the aquifer's higher or lower. I mean, so does your model have that in there, that you're looking at septic loading relative to the geology or whatnot?
Yes, that is explicitly part of the modeling process. You're absolutely right. It makes a big difference. So the loading is the actual mass that hits the ground, and then the model's calculating after it strikes the ground where it goes from there. So that's the kind of thing that has to be calibrated, and we're seeking a Department of Health grant to be able to do that calibration. At this point, we can run preliminary simulations right now pretty quick and easy. So whatever the prioritization process might look like, I think we can do something with that.
Then flowing from that, Art said that there's then you could use that data to make decisions about permitting. Or for example, you said, maybe if somebody was trying to get a new septic in that general vicinity, that might be relevant. And I guess I'm wondering how that thought plays out. I mean, does the Thurston County Code or the Thurston County permitting staff have the tools that they need to make that kind of a judgment? Or how would that information connect to our current processes for permitting a new septic?
Yeah, right now, all we've got are the spot samples that are few and far between. And those are too far apart to really influence the kind of decisions we might make. So one of the things we might talk about is how do we incorporate some of these new technologies into the review process. Right now, current planning does not have access to this. And Jane, Art, Steve, can you speak to the issue of how the assimilative capacity test works, perhaps?
You want to talk, Steve? You've been sitting there doing nothing.
Hey, I've been sitting here looking pretty. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the assimilative capacity, and Kevin is instrumental in helping us with that. And we require that basically on certain types of developments, multifamily, plats, certain commercial types of developments. And basically, it looks at the loading and how it's impacting the aquifer. And we will only allow development to impact a little bit, a certain amount. Every time we do a development, it does raise the levels in the drinking water, and we take that into account. We have a certain parameters we use that Kevin puts in his model, and he'll report out if the development that's being proposed fits into the parameters that are acceptable for a assimilative capacity. If it's outside the parameters that's acceptable for us, then the developer has to go back and rework their proposal to fall within the requirements.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like then it's a matter of having that information connected. It's not like you need additional tools or process. Sounds like you have that process for using that and incorporating it into decisions about permits.
We do, but it's for larger projects. We do not apply it for just single family lots of record.
Okay. I know we're out of time. I had one more question, if I could squeeze it in. Art, this one's for you. Going back in time to when the board, I think very briefly funded the septic system management plan. There was a proposal to fund it at one level, and then there was a $10 fee or whatnot. If the board had stuck with its original model of funding that plan, what would that have paid for vis-a-vis the things you've talked about today on septic stuff?
It depends on the funding level, but the intent was to go and be able to continue to do education and outreach work, to more enhanced work. It would allow for us to, one of the key things would be to do pollution identification and correction work or PIC work. And depending at the full scale, it would have had more opportunities for community engagement. And one version of it even would have supplanted the current time of transfer process, which there's a separate fee for, and had that covered by the fee. So there were a couple different versions of it that came out. The $10 charge version of it would have focused more on, wouldn't have supplanted the time of transfer thing, but instead would have focused more on community engagement and outreach, more training, trying to provide more opportunities for people to learn how to monitor and maintain their systems, and would have had some component, I believe, of pollution identification and correction. In other words, the surface water monitoring and things that we can do to identify problem areas and see if they're related to septic systems or not. And you probably wouldn't be surprised to learn most of that would probably be shoreline areas. Am I missing something there, Jane and Steve?
Time check, commissioners. Commissioner
Yeah,
Messer.
we got to wrap up. I just want to say that I trust that will be part of what you were saying. You're still kind of working to pull together and maybe present some of those possibilities to us at the follow-up that you said you would be having early next year. Was that what I understood?
We'll try. We're sure trying to, and we will come back.
Yeah, my suggestion, Commissioner, if I may, for the next briefing will be to concentrate on the septic management plan.
Sounds like a good idea. Thanks everybody for being here.
I can dust off my old notes and we can talk about that.
Informative as usual, and this brings to a close the Board of Health meeting for today. And I thank everybody for their input, and we will continue this conversation.
Thank you very much. And again, sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll work on that next time.
Thanks, Art.